When I was a teenager, I liked the paranormal and unexplained a lot. Whenever somebody mentioned anything spooky, I was bound and determined to hear the full story and nothing less to determine if it was truly real or something that could be written off as everyday causes. To be honest, I was a prick about the whole deal. Friends didn't find my obsession with the paranormal to be great conversation starters with our mutual normal friends. I suppose it was for the best in retrospect. As the years went on, I slowly was immersed into other hobbies. Anything from video gaming to cooking. More often than not, my house ended up being the hangout spot for my group of friends. You see, my father was a firefighter at the time, and their schedules involved 24 to 48-hour shifts at their respective houses. My friends loved this freedom. The freedom of having no adults around to keep on our tails or listen to our private conversations. Me? Well, as much as I enjoyed the alone time, my house was just too empty with no one home. There were 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom branching off one side of the house, while the other held the living room, kitchen, and dining room and 1 extra room. This extra room served as cheap storage unit for my dad's embarrassing hoarding habit. It sat with a couch, chair, old desk, and room itself stuffed to the brim with so much junk that you could hardly get the door open. My brother, however, chose this as his room whenever he could come and visit. More often than not, we just kept it closed and pretended that the eyesore didn't exist. My friends always asked to go in and see it, though I was adamant on keeping them out. I was embarrassed by my dad's problem. As the years went by and I enrolled in culinary school, his habit branched out into the dining room. Boxes of junk mail and old eBay auctions he claimed that would pay for my college in the long run sat around on the table and chairs. I would pitch things on his days at work secretly, not wanting him to endure his weird compulsive lectures on how saving 4 dozen cardboard boxes would help when I graduated. One weekend, I was home alone. Friends coming over that evening to play some video games and be entertained by my pompous culinary abilities. I was cleaning the dining room out, shoving junk mail into trash bags, when I heard a tapping coming from the room. I ignored it since it was daytime and obviously nothing bad happened with natural light, but the tapping continued. So I got up and investigated. The door opened with a bit of applied elbow grease, and I was met with a putrid, stale smell. My allergies were haywire at the time, as my dad adopted a dog between the time in college and present, so the fact that I could even smell the odor was saying something. The floor was littered in trash and dry food. I immediately thought of my brother Tom. The guy would come in and act as though he owned the place, trash the room, and abandon his garbage, then leave. The definition of freeloader was Tom, which always left me pissed off, seeing as I was the one who always had to clean up after him. In a furious bout of rage-induced cleaning, I had the room gutted of his mess and thrown away, completely wiping the smell away. I closed the room up and forgot about it for months. While college dragged on, I met more people who were into the paranormal, almost as much as I used to be. My interests were back, finally having a positive outlet for my hobby. These buddies of mine would come over on long breaks over the few years I was in college. We experimented with everything from Ouija boards to one man's hide and seek. Disappointed, but relief on my part, to never find anything malicious. Over the summer, between my 3rd and 4th year of school, I was home alone playing some RPG in the living room. It was probably 4 in the morning when I heard a distinctive creaking of the room's door opening, the door that required elbow grease to move. In that entire life, I have never felt a pang of fear that had shook my whole body at that moment. The feeling of your entire body stiffening and simultaneously going to ice, and the fear to move lest you want to be seen. My mind flashed to the events of earlier that week where a few of us got drunk and played with a Ouija board in the dining room. Just dumb adults playing with a board game. As I continued to watch the door, it stopped. But the way it stopped was off. Not like it hit something. Something stopped it. The door shut slowly after. Then there was a shuffling. I sat glued to the couch, eventually returning to my game as my heart beat in my throat. I dialed my closest friend Kelly, and we chatted aimlessly until I got back to my room, hyperventilating and trying not to fucking lose it all. We caught a ghost or a demon. I was convinced. There was no way we hadn't. After all of the years of dancing around the inevitable, it finally happened. This was enough for me to email a handful of paranormal investigators in the area pleading for help. A response was given by one of the groups based on a long history of ridiculous seances, rituals, and ghost invitations that I had left open. The next thing I knew, we were on the phone scheduling a time to come investigate my house. My dad would have to find out. Funny how easy it is to hide signs of the occult for years, only to have it come crashing down in a state of emergency. He was not pleased, though he did allow the investigation on his night at the firehouse, more concerned about his dwindling cases of alcohol that he claimed that I ripped into. The night of the investigation occurred late July of 2013, with 4 members of the investigation team and myself going through the house upon that evening. When we opened the door, the smell was almost unbearable. The room itself was burning up as hot as it was outside, which set the team off their rockers, worried about some demonic activity being high. I myself was more concerned that the room looked much worse than Tom's usual exploits. Trash was on every inch of the floor that wasn't occupied by crates and boxes. Pop cans and beer bottles were on the desk, completely covering it, stuck to the wood with their sticky residue. I was surprised not to see bugs just engulfing the place. We set a camera up and exited without comment on the mess, myself feeling resentment to my slob brother's escapades. Nighttime came and we set up hold in the van, I with the team's technician. I was asked to stay outside while they performed their duties, much to my relief. The cameras picked up nothing when they asked if anyone was there. No voices or horrible banging. They sat on the ground in the living room, vapidly asking away. My attention was on the camera set on the room, as well as the technicians. Suddenly something moved. The couch swung forward. I was stunned, that pang of fear once again blooming. The technician didn't say anything, didn't look away, and couldn't believe what we just saw. Couldn't believe what we were seeing. A man crawled out from behind the couch. He moved it back into place quieter than before, and slowly made his trek to the door. Something must have made noise, because the team in the other room all swiveled their heads at the same time. Someone was breaking into my fucking house. We were there watching, seeing what he would do. As I was dialing the police on my phone, this was surreal. This wasn't fucking happening. How could this happen? How did shit like this exist outside of fiction? As I was frantically relaying the events on the camera to the dispatcher, the man in the room went to the door and locked it. The team at this point went outside, exasperating over how the spirit had made this connection with them by moving shit. The technician was already running to the front door to explain what was happening. I was left watching this man. He was walking back to the couch when he saw it. The camera. The fucking camera on the fucking tripod, meant to catch the deceased, not some lunatic. He looked through it right at me. He made eye contact. I burst out into a sob over the phone, jumping out of the van to vomit. This wasn't happening. By the time I had collected myself, the police had arrived. The man was gone from the video screen. We had found out there had been a hole dug through the wood in this room, which just so happened to be right behind the couch. A perfect place to be. The owner worked the daughter away from home. The house was free reign if they desired. By the looks of the room, this man had been coming and going for some time. Months, maybe a year at most. There were no possessions, just scrap paper, trash, and a few of my college notices. There was a picture of me among the mess. A picture that went missing a few days prior to this event. A picture that was in my bedroom. Someone was living in my house with me. They never caught the bastard. Dad moved a few months later after this incident. I myself choosing not to stay with him, not after what happened. I moved into the dorms for a semester. Private room. I've changed all my contact information, all my emails, anything that he could have known or traced from those letters. I changed my name because of that lunatic. I thought the paranormal was the only thing I would ever have to fear. Human beings are so much worse.